So how exactly do you go about building your value proposition? Well, we've introduced this template before. So as a refresher, the design here is that in the header of each column, you would list your leading competitors, not at the company level, but more so at the product level. So what is your leading competitor number 1, your leading competing product number 2, and so forth. And then reserve a column, generally to the far right, for your product. In each of the rows, with this approach, row 1 is the must-haves. So what are the 1, the 2, maybe 4, 5, and 6 features that you think are must-haves that most of your competitors offer, that the customers are generally going to expect with any product in your category? In the next set of rows, we're looking at performance benefits. And then lastly, in the third set, we're looking at those delighters that we've talked about before. When you do your analysis, that begins to give you the opportunity to fill out the data. And analysis is really key to developing your value proposition. Don't just assume you know. Don't base it purely on your own opinion. It's easy for you to look at competitors and competing products and say, well, there's this wrong, there's that wrong, and there's the other wrong. You might be right, or you might be a bit biased. So instead, let that analysis be informed by your research, by your customer interviews, by your analysis of secondary research. Read reports and articles and consumer reviews and things of that nature. That way you're working from good data. For example, if you go in, you may find that you do that analysis, and for competing product A, they have the must-haves. Competing product B has the must-haves. You'll want to have it as well. And that next element, suppose that there is some performance benefit that competitor A does very well. Note that is high. For that same benefit, you would analyze your other competitors. In this example, for competitor B, they're at the medium level. Similarly, for the next item, A came in at medium, B came in at medium. The next item in delighters, perhaps A has something that is truly special, and you would note that whatever that delighter is, you'd put a yes in that column. If B does not have that same delighter, you would put a no there, and so forth. So that gives you some sense of what the competing offerings would look like. In your column on the far right, the temptation for many entrepreneurs or innovators and product managers is to try and be the best at everything. If competitor A has it high, we're going to have it high as well, maybe even higher. If the next performance benefit is medium among our competitors, we want to have it high. If they have delighters, we want to have those same delighters. If we have some new things, we'll add that as well. I put those in red because that's a good element that you need to stop. You're likely are overbuilding the product. You're likely trying to pack in too many benefits and too many delighters. And you'll fall in that pitfall of having something that's overly complicated to build, takes too long to do it, and is going to be too expensive to sell. So take note of that. An example of something that might fit in this category is the Carman King. 400 horsepower armored SUV with a bar, a fridge, and a television. Who's the customer for this? I don't know, aside from somebody that has $1.85 million to spend on an SUV. And this is not a fiction. This is a real product. And I expect they might be able to sell 10, maybe 12 of these a year until the novelty runs out. And I don't know where you go from there. So there is such a thing of trying to do too much and trying to pack in too many features and trying to pack in too many delighters. And it's going to essentially obliterate your market. You'll have a few people that might be interested, but they're going to have to pay so much for it. It might not be a sustainable business model. So keep that in mind as well. Instead, be realistic. Be forward-looking. And recognize that if the must-haves are there for your competitors, you need it too. Check those boxes. Do those must-haves. That's fine. Performance benefits. Think about what really matters for the target customer. Maybe performance benefit 1 isn't really the element that you want to focus on. Maybe the target market that you're examining and trying to serve with your product isn't particularly interested in performance benefit number one. And so you might not try and be the same as competitors. You might be low in that category. In exchange, that might give you some resources and some funding and some time to focus on doing performance benefit 2 a bit better. And that's where you can be higher than the others. Similarly, if the competitors have some delighters, you might elect that that's not what you want to do. You don't want to necessarily try and compete heads up doing exactly what competitors do. Maybe there's some delighters that you just aren't going to do. That's a feature that your product is not going to have. And the trade-off for that is it gives you the time and the money and the resources to focus on different delighters. And that's where you want to differentiate. So again, when you're looking at value innovation and the value proposition, the challenge is not to you be the best at everything. That's pretty rare. Most professional athletes aren't good at every sport. They're good at one sport, maybe two, but generally one at a professional level. So think about that too. Think about what one element you want to focus on with your product. Don't try and be everything to everybody, and let that guide your value proposition.